When it comes to FNAF minigames, Happiest Day is probably the most iconic. And unfortunately, that's not for great reasons. It's not iconic because of something heartwarming or exciting or anything like that. Instead, it's iconic because nobody can agree on what's actually happening. I mean, FNAF 3 came out a literal decade ago, and I was having a conversation about what's happening in this minigame last week. It's ridiculous, and to be honest, it's not really our fault. This one's all on Scott. He simultaneously pushes both of the two main solutions at the same time, and it's an absolute mess to try and fully figure it out. I talked about Happiest Day a little bit in my last video, but it's time to actually focus on it. Today, we're going to be theorizing about, and probably complaining about, one of the most important minigames in FNAF history, FNAF 3's Happiest Day. But first, a question. What is FNAF World? Is it an in-universe game that people can play? Is it a meta-narrative that's shakily canon? Or is it a secret third thing? Let me know your answer in the comments before I tell you mine later on in this video. Make sure you like and subscribe while you're down there too. And with that out of the way, let's talk about Happiest Day. I'll spare you the long explanation of what happens in this minigame. You play other minigames, bring children with masks to the party by giving them cake, and then give one final kid cake before they put on a Golden Freddy mask. And then, all of them fade away. To understand what's going on here, we need to do one important thing. Identify who all of these children are. For the most part, that's pretty easy to do. The puppet is Charlie, the 4 kids you bring here are the MCI kids that possess their respective animatronics, and then we have the last kid. The kid that puts on a Golden Freddy mask and signals the end of it all. Who are they? In my own recent experience, I found that a lot of people think that this child is Cassidy. Between things like there being a girl wearing yellow with black hair getting a cake from the puppet in the survival logbook, and the last character to receive a cake and return to the pit being a girl with pigtails, it seems like Scott has recently been trying to tell us that this character is Cassidy. And it's wrong. It's completely wrong. And it's ignoring what's been right in front of our faces for years. Listen, I'm just gonna level with all of you here. If Cassidy is the Happiest Day receiver, then it's a retcon. I'm fully confident in this, all because of one thing. FNAF World. It's no secret that I dislike FNAF World, but let's focus on what we're actually seeing in this game first and foremost. Specifically, in the most story-driven route of the game, the clock route. This route is accessed by staying on Fredbear's dialogue for a long time, and then having him instruct you on an alternate path you could take, to set the breadcrumbs for him. Before we talk about who he is, let's look at what Fredbear, or Glitchbear rather, has you doing in this route. You go around the world and interact with several different clocks, which all pull you into a quick minigame. Now, if you pay attention to what we're seeing in these minigames, you'll notice an immediate similarity. These minigames are all basically exactly what we see in Follow Me from FNAF 3. So, let's follow the train of logic here. Collecting these clocks serves as setting the breadcrumbs for him. These clocks put you in minigames that heavily resemble the hints we get in Follow Me from FNAF 3. These hints all lead to bringing the spirit scattered throughout FNAF 3's minigames to Happiest Day. And in Happiest Day, this child is waiting at the end of the table from the very beginning, for everything else to happen. These are where those breadcrumbs lead, to the quote-unquote good ending of FNAF 3. The entire purpose of the clock route in FNAF World is for this, to help this spirit pass on peacefully. So that begs the question, why am I so sure that this child isn't Cassidy? Nothing we've heard so far has exactly been a nail in the coffin for either character, really. Well, let's circle back to FNAF World for a moment to figure that out. Specifically, how the game opens and ends. When the game opens for the first time, everything that happens out there has an effect here. Do you understand? This is a safe space. This is a sanctuary. But something has gone wrong, and now it can be seen here. Something went very wrong. That's why I am here. But I won't let the same happen to you. I will put you back together. This yellow-eyed speaker only returns at the very end of the game, after completing the clock ending. We are still your friends. Do you believe that? The pieces are in place for you. All you have to do is find them. Rest. The use of, I will put you back together, and we are still your friends, pretty heavily implies that the person on the receiving end of this text is the crying child. It mirrors exactly what was said to him at the end of FNAF 4. And look at what happens at the end of the dialogue. The yellow-eyed speaker tells him that the pieces are in place for you. These pieces were set by you doing all of the clock minigames, or in other words, by setting up the hints for FNAF 3's Happiest Day. All of this dialogue is practically screaming at you that the person at the end of this table in Happiest Day is the crying child that we see pass away in FNAF 4. I want to get something out of the way, because I know at least a few of you are thinking this, and I need to debunk it before people start commenting about it. No, the crying child's happiest day is not what we see through Old Man Consequences. For those who don't know, when you drown in OMC's lake, you get a screen of 3 people standing together. This image is called Happiest Day in the files, implying that it's someone's happiest day. I can't tell you whose it is or why it's here, but calling this the crying child's happiest day feels entirely wrong, due to the fact that setting up FNAF 3's happiest day is the entire point of this game. It would make this entire route useless if his happiest day was received right here. Now, back on point. We've established that the crying child is the receiver of FNAF 3's happiest day, so that's it, right? Well, not exactly. See, we might have answered that question, but there's still a lot more to go over, especially when it comes to FNAF World. Let's start off with the big one. Who is the person represented by Yellow Eyes that we see in FNAF World, who seems to be orchestrating everything going on in the game? Well, let's get the most obvious answer out of the way first. It's not William. If this is William, then it would imply that William went out of his way to orchestrate this entire game for the sake of his son, who he doesn't care about. Will care is fake, don't start trying to tell me otherwise. I'll literally fight you. So if not him, then who? Well, that seems like a question for my friend rather than me, because she has an unhealthy obsession with the survival logbook, and that's where this stems from. Take it away, Kate.
Throughout the survival logbook, we have 3 people that speak. One of them is Mike, but he doesn't really interact with the other 2 spirits all that much, so we won't focus on that for today. Instead, we're going to focus on the other 2 spirits. The one speaking through faded text, and the one that speaks by altering text. Everyone's been over this multiple times, and we all know who these 2 are. Cassidy and the crying child. Cassidy is asking the crying child multiple questions about him and his past. The fact that Cassidy knows so much about the crying child, and asks him such specific questions, is somewhat cause for alarm though. These 2 characters never met each other throughout the crying child's life, so how does Cassidy know these things? Well, there's one explanation for that. Psychic friend Fredbear. Think about it. There's no logical explanation for how this thing works. It teleports around everywhere, it talks to him seemingly telepathically, even during his final moments of life. And all in all, just doesn't make any damn sense. So what if there's a reason for that? What if that's because psychic friend Fredbear isn't real? As in, isn't actually there during those moments in time. Instead, this is Cassidy looking back through the crying child's memories, learning things about him, and using them to build trust with him. It would explain how Cassidy seems to know so much about someone she's never had any direct connection with, while simultaneously explaining what's going on with the plush that seems to teleport and speak in the crying child's head so often. So if Cassidy knows everything about his past and speaks to him through the logbook, then it's very likely that Cassidy is also the person speaking to him in FNAF World. It would even explain the fact that Yellow Eyes says things like, "I will put you back together," and "We are still your friends." She's repeating things that the crying child has heard before, reminding him of who he is, just like she did for him in the survival logbook. But then, what does that mean? What is Cassidy trying to accomplish here as Yellow Eyes? And just what is happening throughout FNAF World? Well, this isn't my video, so I don't have to worry about telling you that. Cryo can handle that himself.
So, Cassidy is probably the Yellow Eye speaker. Personally, I'm extremely confident about that. And assuming that that's true, everything else just kinda slots into place. Cassidy helps the crying child find his memories in the survival logbook, and by making FNAF World, she helped set the breadcrumbs for his happiest day, where he could finally move on and find peace. Wait, what? Cassidy made FNAF World? I mean, that's what the logic of everything else stated dictates, but does it actually make any sense? Well, yes, but also not really. At least, not in the way that we've been perceiving this game. To understand what that means, we need to talk about what FNAF World really is. People have tried to figure out what this game is for years now. Some people think it's an in-universe game that people can actually play. Some people think that it's just a meta thing where we're the ones freeing the crying child. And some people just get a headache and stop trying to figure it out after a while. Not gonna lie, I was a part of that camp for a while too. But now, with the idea that Cassidy is the yellow-eyed speaker, and with the knowledge of everything else going on in the series, I have a new idea to present. FNAF World isn't even real. It's an illusion, a set of smoke and mirrors that's been tricking every single one of us since the very day it came out. Think about it. If the entire purpose of FNAF World is for someone to help set the breadcrumbs for the crying child's happiest day, then why does anything else exist here? Why are there all of these playable characters? Why are there boss battles? Why is there an inner conflict going on in this world? If the entire purpose of FNAF World is for the sake of saving the crying child, then there would be literally no purpose for any of these things. Fundamentally speaking, it's one massive game of pretend, something that Cassidy just decided to make. But why? And how? I mean, Cassidy being able to do this essentially means that she can create entire realities, which isn't actually anything new because we see her doing that in Ultimate Custom Night, but unfortunately, most of you, at least the loud ones, are Stitchline believers. Derogatory. So, blah. Humor me for a little while though, and let's go down the line of thought that Cassidy can actually create entire realities. If Cassidy is really capable of this, then don't you think she would have gone about this in a much simpler way? I mean, hell, by that logic, finding those clocks and setting up the FNAF 3 minigames was kinda useless, wasn't it? Sounds like Cassidy could have done that in a much easier way without adding everything else that we see in FNAF World to it. It's almost like Cassidy isn't doing this for the crying child's sake. Like she's trying to make something else happen, and is using the crying child as a means to an end. Wait, what if that is the truth? What if her caring for the crying child is a means to an end? What if she's not trying to help him move on? What if she has another plan altogether? Okay, I know what you're all thinking. That claim sounds like it's coming entirely out of nowhere. But just hear me out. I have things to say. Throughout FNAF World, we're picking up the breadcrumbs for the crying child. But that begs a question that we have yet to ask. Who are we? We're not Cassidy, obviously. So who can we be? Well, who is the one other character in these games associated with trying to save these children's souls? Charlie. I think that she's the most likely character that we play as in this game. Charlie is the one other character that's gone around trying to save people, as we see in both Give Gifts, Give Life and Happiest Day. Throughout FNAF World, she goes through the simulation created by Cassidy following the lead of Glitch Bear. On that note, I haven't said this yet, but I think that Glitch Bear is also Cassidy. That makes the most sense to me, considering that Glitch Bear has those same yellow eyes. But you might have noticed something. Glitch Bear and Yellow Eyes completely contradict each other. One of them says that this is a safe space, while the other one says that there isn't a safe space. I personally take this as Cassidy deliberately telling both Charlie and the crying child two different things to try and appease them. The crying child is being soothed and told that everything is going to be okay and not to worry, while Charlie is being sent on a quest to try and fix everything, and told that nothing matters except for the mission. Moving on. By the end of the game, Charlie manages to find every single clock and effectively set the breadcrumbs for Happiest Day. Or, in other words, set the hints for the minigames that we see and complete in FNAF 3. This ultimately leads to the next time we actually see Charlie, in Happiest Day with the rest of the spirits. On the note of Happiest Day, let's talk about FNAF 3's canon ending. Not only has Scott never confirmed to us what the canon ending to FNAF 3 is, he's outright refused to tell us what it is. In the first interview with Dawko, he went on to say this.
I've given a lot of thought as to whether or not I should answer this question.
Okay.
And I went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And the answer is very interesting.
Okay.
You know? The answer is very interesting. The answer is complex.
Okay.
However, I'm not going to answer it.
Calling the answer complex is an interesting choice here, because really, it shouldn't be. The answer should be one thing or another. Either Happiest Day doesn't happen, or it does. This statement implies that there's something more to it, that there's another option that goes beyond it either happening or not happening. So what do I think? I think that Happiest Day did happen, but that the result of it wasn't what any of us thought it was. Because while I do think that all of the spirits came together during Happiest Day, I don't think that they all moved on. Rather, I think that the opposite happened. I think that all of those spirits got stuck there. To back this up, I'd like to bring up the same passage from the books that I did in my last video, Millie's Happiest Day from the Stitch Rate Stingers. I'm not going to read through this entire thing again because, quite frankly, I've done that enough recently. Instead, let me just refresh your memory on what happens. Jake, inside of her memories, brings Millie to her home where she runs into her grandfather's arms and finally finds peace. And once that happens, she's in somewhat of a dormant state. Her soul doesn't actually move on at the end of the story, because once the scene ends, one of the balls in the ball pit starts shimmering, and inside of it, you can see the scene of her with her family still there. Her soul is there, in a dormant state, a happy one. She's stuck in that happy memory forever. I think that's what actually happens during someone's happiest day. Their souls don't pass on, they just exist in that moment of peace forever, continuously soothed until someone pulls them out of it. And I think that's exactly what happens at the end of FNAF 3. Charlie, the crying child, and all of the MCI kids enter a dormant state through Happiest Day. Their souls don't move on, not like the game implies. That's what makes the ending complex, because it's not what the game is telling you. It's something that didn't pay off until years later. So, why? Why did Cassidy do this? Why were all of the kids put into a dormant state, instead of just being allowed to move on? Well, that's simple, because she needed them. She needed those souls for Ultimate Custom Night, where they were brought back to continue the torture of William Afton. Pop quiz. Which of the animatronics in UCN are actually haunted? Or, more specifically, how many of these animatronics have a child speaking through them? Cut out the ones with no voice lines, cut out the ones where they're just robots speaking, and cut out the mediocre melodies, since that's the vengeful spirit talking, and that's not entirely relevant to the point at hand. If you do that, you're left with only a few characters. Withered Bonnie, Withered Chica, and the puppet. And Lefty, but I already went over that. So what do Withered Bonnie, Withered Chica, and the puppet have in common with each other, apart from all being from FNAF 2? In the entire game, these are the only 3 spirits that were also present for Happiest Day. Susie and Jeremy were both victims of the MCI in 1985, and went on to possess that set of animatronics, which would go on to become the Withered animatronics later on. And Charlie, as we see in FNAF 6, was killed outside and possessed the puppet when the security puppet crawled out of its box and went to find her. The 3 of them were all there for Happiest Day, and we see all of them, quote-unquote, move on at the end of the minigame, but in reality, none of them moved on. What actually happened was that they were all left in a dormant state, just like Millie was at the end of the Stitch Wraith Stingers, and once UCN rolled around, Cassidy had control over their energy and used it to construct the perfect hell for William Afton. This is why both of the Withered animatronics we see in UCN have voice lines that imply sentience. Chica goes on about how she was the first and that she's seen everything, and Bonnie asks what this new prison is and wonders if he's trapped in it with the player. Then there's Charlie, who talks about being more aware than everyone else and is trying to put an end to all of this. She wants to stop Cassidy, because in the process of creating Ultimate Custom Night, Cassidy has essentially trapped the spirits of everyone who was present for Happiest Day. She was under the impression that she was helping put everyone to peace when she laid the breadcrumbs in FNAF World, but in reality, this just brought everyone into another nightmare, led by someone who has been fully consumed by their unrelenting desire for revenge. Because of this, we hear Charlie directly tell William Afton to stay out of her way, and that she doesn't hate him. Because for all of his faults and all of the awful things he's done, he's not currently the one keeping all of these spirits trapped. That's all Cassidy's doing. She just wants him to stay out of the way so that she can put an end to this, for the sake of everyone involved, even Cassidy. And that is only half of the story. We now know how we got to this point, how UCN came to be, how FNAF World is involved, what the canon ending to FNAF 3 is, and what Cassidy and Charlie are both responsible for in terms of how things came to be the way that they are. But that begs the question, what happened next? Did UCN ever stop, or is it still going on to this day? Are all of those spirits still trapped, or did they ever find peace? And what ultimately became of William Afton's soul? Find out all of that and more on Mama Kato's channel, with her newest video that went up right alongside this one. The 2 of us came up with this theory together, but she takes all of the credit for everything that comes up next. So all of that is going up on her channel. So once you're done here, go to the video linked to the description and check out what the ramifications of Happiest Day and UCN truly are. As for me, I'm gonna end things off here. Thanks for watching. This is the first time I've ever brought someone else onto my channel before, and probably won't be the last time. Who knows, we'll see in the future. This is also the first video on my channel that wasn't edited by me, because as I'm sure all of you know, I'm not exactly big on editing videos. So from now on, Mama Kato will be editing them for me, which means I don't have to worry about the part of the video making process that takes the most amount of time by far, which honestly might turn into me actually uploading more frequently, if I can come up with enough ideas, that is. We'll see. Anyway, I have more things to write, and this video is long enough as it is, so I don't want to extend things for too much longer. Make sure you like and subscribe, and with that, I'll see you all next time. Take it easy.